There are two issues the Defense Department will need to address on the path to innovation: intellectual property and security. That's according to Jerry McGinn, Executive Director of the Center for Government Contracting at George Mason University. He's former Principal Deputy Director for Manufacturing and Industrial Base Policy. Jerry, welcome to the program.
Great to be here with you, Mimi.
So what is the issue with intellectual property? Is it, say, that a contractor creates software for the DoD? Would they own the rights to that product? How does that work?
Yeah, so intellectual property is the lifeblood of innovation, and it has been for our entire kind of history. And in the Department of Defense, it matters a lot. And during the Cold War, stealth technology, what's helped win the Cold War it was intellectual property, and it was all defense focused. A lot of those, but today what you see is the cutting edge innovation in the Department of Defense is things like artificial intelligence, robotics, autonomy. These are heavily software driven activities, and their intellectual property is mostly commercial. So dealing with that as the Department of Defense is becoming a more savvy customer is a big focus area that needs to be addressed. The department has taken a step here. They've published a policy on intellectual property back in late 2019 to be more proactive and negotiate up front. And they've actually got a call out for inputs on this. But there seems to be some challenges in actually getting that to implemented, which we'll talk about.
Yes, we will talk about that. But first, explain the issue with security.
Yeah. So security is, like innovation is the lifeblood for how the department is going to maintain with China. But security is an important part of that. You've got to develop the technologies through intellectual property. Then you've got to protect them, and that's really much more difficult now when it's very heavily commercially driven innovation. And you've seen with the SolarWinds attack, cyber attack, and with the recent DOJ indictment of 4 Chinese individuals that were, trying to get intellectual property at universities, at defense contractors, and so on. Our sources of innovation are being attacked, and we have to protect them.
Jerry, can you give me an example of how either the lack of IP protections or security protections could end up hindering defense innovation?
Yeah. So if you've got, in the case of IP. If the government decides, hey, we want unlimited rights so we can maintain and develop this system as it goes throughout its life cycle, and they don't come to agree with a company may say, I don't want to give up those rights. I'm going to walk away and not compete for this program, which means that DoD won't get that potential innovation. In the case of security, if a program is being conducted on, say, robotics, and you've got government customers, government personnel, and university personnel, and industry personnel working on it, and the information, proprietary information, is compromised by a cyber attack or some other kind of espionage, then that will end up destroying or reducing the military advantage for the United States.
Well, speaking of espionage, what have the Chinese been doing to steal U.S. military know-how? You mentioned the 4 individuals that were indicted. How successful have they been at taking American military intellectual property?
Yeah, no, there have been a number of reports done on this, and unfortunately, if you look at the actual silhouette of the Chinese advanced fighter, it sadly looks a lot like our F-35. So, there's been a lot of documented intellectual property theft, espionage that has gone to China, and most of that would be classified, but the stuff in the public domain, you just have to look at some of the Chinese systems and you see the outcomes of that theft.
So what kind of policy changes do you recommend for the Defense Department to handle this in a better way, to be more proactive?
Yeah, so that's great. So in the issue of intellectual property, I think both government and industry are looking to find ways to work together. It's just the devil's in the details, right? So one area which would be, I think, mutually beneficial is to look for mutual beneficial licensing rights, where commercial industry or traditional defense contractors and the Department of Defense come to agreement on how to do that with programs in advance. The question is, where to do that in the acquisition program. Is it done during the pre-solicitation phase? Is it done during the competition, after competition? It's not really clear the best place to do that. So we need to come to agreement on that and kind of pursue that. And I see that as a real opportunity for the still arriving officials in the Biden administration to the Pentagon to really kind of take what's already been done and go to the next step. And on security, I think you've got a number of initiatives going on, the cybersecurity maturation model certification, as well as the recent House Armed Services Task Force on critical materials and supply chain security. There's a lot of efforts on supply chain visibility and on cybersecurity that I think the department can carry them to the next step, and there are a number of ways to do that.
Jerry, very quickly, do you have recommendations for software companies that might be worried about protecting their IP and security in working with the Defense Department?
Yes, I think transparency is the key. I mean, I think software companies that are looking to, to help partner with the Department of Defense and serve the nation, they need to be transparent with the government but also protect their rights. So I think you've got to look for ways to find mutually beneficial situations. So that requires both government and industry to be open and transparent on this. And I do see that there are real win-win opportunities if we just kind of roll up our sleeves and take that approach.
Great. Jerry, thanks so much for being on the program. Nice talking to you.
Great to meet you.